If you're in something of a festive mood, you are most certainly not alone. We are in the peak holiday season and hopefully peak holiday mood and spirits, which of course hopefully means that you've got something nice under your Christmas tree this year. And with that, hi once again, everyone. My name's Ken, and this is a Toy Connections online live stream, or TKO, broadcasting, well, like I said, in the run up to the holiday season, and actually we're in the peak holiday season, so I shouldn't even be saying that. So it is Christmas Eve in most parts of the world, but if you happen to be a day ahead and you're tuning in on Christmas Day, Merry Christmas to you, and hopefully you're getting some good time with the family, with friends, with whoever you want to spend this particular holiday season with. So we're here today to look at 2022 as a year in review. As typical of these kinds of streams, there's always going to be a little bit of an arbitrary nature here, and it's going to play to kind of the strengths of what this toy channel is about. So there are going to be, you can mention them in the comments, but I'm not going to be able to go through every single toy line obviously out there. I'm probably going to leave out some big things, but I'd like to talk about what's special to me in 2022, maybe a little bit of what I plan to look forward to in 2023. But if you've got something, throw it in the comments below. And look, obviously, if you're here, you're watching this, you're aware that this is an action figure heavy YouTube channel, something that, well, plays on the nostalgia properties of the past, the stuff that I grew up with, the stuff that you grew up with. And I am going to basically just go over some of that. Now, some of the items I have images for, some of them I'll pull up something on Google, some of them I'm just going to talk through. But, you know, glad to see people in the chat already. Want to say thanks to Mega J Retro last night for having me on again as something of a guest host or a guest co-host, guest. I don't really know. It's just, it's happening more and more on Friday nights where he sends me a link and says, hey, let's go on StreamYard and have a little bit of a chat. So I did that last night, had a great time, and I'm up early today. But you did notice that this TKO started about 30 minutes later, and I actually prefer to start a tiny bit later. But depending how the rest of my day goes, it can be a bit hard to do that. I'm mostly running solo on this stream. I did send out the link kind of late to one or two friends. I've kind of got the festive mood here right there. Like normally these lights behind me are just in a standard white color, but I've got them in red as well as green. Hopefully the resolution is good. I've got the ring light turned around facing me now. Usually I face the ring light the other way and let the light bounce back at me, but I realized that for whatever reason on my StreamYard view, I always look really clear. Then when I play it back, I'm like, I bought a Logitech camera for the reason of better resolution, and I'm not getting it. So I've turned the ring light towards me. So if you see that halo behind me, it's facing me. And I had to turn the brightness down a little because it's hard to go for more than an hour with that much blare in your eyes and not have a headache. But look, let's say a quick hello to the chat. There's a whole bunch of you in here already, and let's jump into the thick of the conversation. And Johnny Sorensen, first up here. I know it's early in the morning / late in the evening where you are, so let's I'm definitely glad that you managed to make it. Gazz, always here. Kenny Witty wishes everyone and me a Merry Christmas. Ozstradaus Toyz. Kieran Ball. Who else we got here? Jeff Morris, highly articulated, giving a nice shout out to Toy Anxiety because he knows that that's where the fun begins, but the fun can also come this way. All right. Did I say hello to Kieran already? Yes, I did. Nolan saying hello 2 days in a row to you. Glad to have you around. Kayla Silva also 2 days in a row because she was in Mega J's chat last night as well. Danjamin905, Rolando Flores, and who else we got? Oh, we got Quip, formerly of a different name, but I won't reveal his identity if he doesn't want to. We got TJC. We got Jim Largo. And wow, just chat just keeps going. So many more. Eddie Rodriguez. I'm just losing. Oh, here we go. Lucha Johnny. I usually see you in the wrestling sub forum of the Discord server on Geek Dad Life 2 or Geek Dad Life 2. Where'd that come from? Maybe because they do their TV talk on that channel. Anyway, we've got K-Dog Broadcasting off to work in the ice. I guess that's have a good work day, I guess. Hopefully they're paying you some good overtime. Shinovo is here. Ian, oh, Quip said hello to you already. Ian J, Mary Toy Christmas, Rai Ken. We were just talking earlier this morning. We got Will Agnes. Wow, there's a lot of you this morning. Like this is, like, I feel like a real YouTube channel now. I mean, some people like Gazz, you'll know from being on some of the early broadcasts. I would come in, I'd say hello to about 2 names, and we'd get into the conversation. And I would just hope and pray and cross my fingers that somebody would watch the stream afterwards. So, wow. And Will Agnes here says this is the year he got into collecting wrestling, and hopefully I played a small part in that journey of yours, Will. I know I haven't broadcasted as much on wrestling as I did last year, but just trust that my interest has largely stayed the same. So yes, happy holidays, everyone. And oh my, Rai Ken had lechon, which is Tagalog / Filipino for pork. I think it's got the crispy skin on the outside, which makes it specifically lechon. So yes, hit the like button, see some familiar faces, and yeah, we are quite a community over here. We see a lot of people crossing over between the multiple channels and toy spaces and social media outlets here. Now, look, there was a lot that happened in 2022. I mean, maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the crowdfunding and the Haslabs and Mattel creations, but only a limited number of those landed this year. Well, do I want to say that? I mean, that's not really the theme of this stream, but I was doing a bit of research in the run up to this stream, and of course, a lot of what comes up is specifically Haslab and Mattel creations, but when it comes to Hasbro and sort of like their core properties, and they have a lot of core properties these days, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start sharing screens here. And Boba Hicks, good to see you today. Did your name come up? Anyway, sorry, I'm trying to share screens and people are still coming. Names are still showing up. There you go. Managed to pull it up. Yes, good vibes. And thank you for the clarification. Pork belly with crispy skin. All right. Cool. All right. So one of the things that got me really amped for 2022 and will spill over into 2023 is this Legacy Series Menasor figure. When Transformers elected to sort of go down the Combiner rabbit hole a number of years ago with their Combiner Wars line, some of the stuff in that line was a little bit hit and miss. I think that this particular Menasor figure was more hit than miss. Look, you've got 4 of the 5 figures released. If you're looking, there's a bit of a gap in his leg there. That's because Breakdown hasn't been released yet. And I know some people have found Breakdown already. For me, it's going to ship in 2023. So what I like about this figure is the likeness that it brings to the cartoon, the comic, and how it looks like a better version of our original toy. I know when some of the Combiner Wars stuff came out, I found it to be a bit disproportional. I found they were trying to go for a bit of a different vibe. This one, to me, hits all the right notes. So there's a bunch of other stuff that like, for example, if I stop sharing this for a second and, oops, what did I do wrong? If I share something of a different screen here, and we look at the Hero is Born 2-pack here. I actually have these figures. They're over here to my left here, but I figured it might be easier just to pull up some Google images. And what I liked about this is they released Alpha Trion finally in something that I thought looked good, and he was transformable. And I thought they made pretty good use of the Cup Studio series tooling mold to make a really good Orion Pax. It almost feels like that they had some foresight when they created this this figure with the Orion Pax, almost like they knew that the Cup mold was going to be reused. Whereas in G1, when they turned the Cup G1 figure into an eHobby exclusive, when they reused the tooling and colors and changed the colors to make it an eHobby exclusive, it was really obvious. It's like, okay, that's just Cup repainted. This one, I like what they did. And just getting back to it a little bit, I just wanted to give a shout out to that because I realized I forgot to take a photo of that. But I'll get back to sharing screens in a second here. Oh, sorry. This Menasor, to me, I wonder if it's the start of something special. Like, are we going to get more combiners? Are we going to get Superion? Are we going to get Defensor? Are we going to get Computron, Abominus, Bruticus, another Predaking? Are we going to get something like that when it comes to Transformers? Because I think that what they've done with the Legacy series, they've managed to do it in a way that it's going to be hard to top this in the future. And they've released combiners in the past, like I've said, but this is going to be one of those where it's like the bar has gone up and now Hasbro is almost like chasing themselves. And I could say the same thing for basically the majority of their Legacy Studio Series War for Cybertron toy waves. And just catching up a little bit with the chat here, Lucha Johnny says, give me all the combiners. And I kind of feel the same way. Like, I have Combiner Wars versions, or I guess the Japanese Unite Warriors versions of Superion and Defensor. And I know Defensor has an upgrade kit that looks really good. And I could either get the Combiner Wars upgrade kit from a number of years ago, or I could see if Legacy's going to make them. Not really sure, but either way, you can tell I'm happy with the Menasor. And just catching up a little bit with the chat, John Phipps has a question here. Hi, Ken. Hello to you, John. 2023 is going to be a big sales year for him, and he's wondering if he should send stuff to be graded or sell without grading. Now, I'm not sure if you run a store outlet or something to that effect, and if you're trying to make money specifically. Here's the thing about graded stuff. It's a very niche market. When I go to toy shows, people selling graded stuff, it's targeted very much for people who were like collecting artwork. Like, you're targeting the top 1% of collectors there. Don't get me wrong, people will buy graded stuff sometimes if it's an item they're very specifically passionate about. I think if you're in the US, your turnaround time to get something graded by AFA and get it back is not as bad as if you were international. So in my mind, I prefer, like, when I have a booth at a toy show, I just like to sell it as is. And I think because you're getting a lot of the casual collectors as well, not necessarily just the hardcore collector, you get a lot more conversation and more camaraderie that way. But that's kind of how I approach it. And I can only relay my own experiences. Your mileage is going to vary. If you have other reasons and other factors I've mentioned that result in you wanting to have things graded, then you can make that choice, my friend. But thank you for posing the question. Now let's just have a look here. Rolando Flores says that's a good looking Menasor, and Lucha Johnny says that he's only got Drag Strip and Motor Master so far. Yeah, I think it was, I can't remember whether it was Dead End or Wild Rider that was canceled from me by Amazon, and I quickly panic bought it off of Walmart. Thankfully, they still had it. So I hope they don't cancel Breakdown, because that would mean I can't complete Menasor. But what's nice about Motor Master here is Motor Master at least is able to turn into the majority of the combiner on his own. Like, he can stand that way on his own, without the rest of the bots. So let's just keep catching up with the chat over here. Quip says grading is risky business. Make sure it's cherry if you're going to send it in. That's the thing, because what if you send something that you think is going to get a certain grade and it doesn't, and you spent the money to get it graded, and it doesn't make back what you hoped it would. And yes, a low score can make it harder to sell, like, unless of course it's a comic book. Like, if you have the first appearance of Spider-Man, Amazing Fantasy number 15 from, I think, 1963, people will buy that at a 1.5 grade because they just don't exist, right? And Boba Hicks, thank you for the super chat there. Says they will definitely release the characters I named. They will sell us this stuff until we go extinct. Merry Christmas. I would tend to agree, because, like, it's been a number of years since we've seen Combiner Wars Defensor, since we've seen Combiner Wars Superion, Computron, Bruticus, etc. Now they've kind of evolved their style, their sculpting, their design. So absolutely, they probably will. I mean, Menasor, it's almost like, I don't think he's the most popular combiner. So it's like, are they going to try to do, for example, Devastator in the scale? Because the Combiner Wars Devastator was like 18 inches tall. This one's closer to 13 inches. And this is a little bit more in scale with the Legacy figures. And I know Transformer scale varies. You know, scale is not very consistent. But where you can find those height charts online, and you put this next to like a Megatron or an Optimus, this looks like the right scale most of the time. So again, thank you for the super chat there. Merry Christmas over there in Ireland to you, Boba Hicks, as I know it's getting close to dinner time in your area. Kieran Ball says he does not believe in toy grading, but he does believe in packaging toys so they do not suffer damage. So I have thought about maybe getting like acrylic casing for some of the boxes I don't want to damage, because like I just got a Transformer Sky Gary last week. I did not expect the box to be that bad, that good. If a box already has a little bit of damage and a little bit beat up, which is where I was going next, and it gets a little bit dinged up after, I don't mind so much. I try to preserve it in the condition I got it. And yeah, Quip. Rare, if it's a rare piece, grade away. Now, I have yet to find a graded piece, and I know I will in my lifetime, that I want to own in my collection, right? Because once you've graded it, you can't really touch it again, right? Maybe it's a monument to something that you had as a kid, or the peak of something that you really enjoy in toys. If someone was to hold up a boxed Generation 1 Optimus for me in a high grade, and I was largely done collecting everything else, and I kind of wanted this as a centerpiece, I could consider something like that, right? That's just an example because of the type of collector that I am and who I am. So, and yes, Combiner Wars Devastator was indeed a Titan class. It was not a the sort of regular standard class of figure. Though the class sizes seem to have shifted, right? Like you've noticed that your leader class has gotten smaller over the years. Now, this is in regards to Transformers. Feel free to keep chatting Transformers throughout the chat, even if I move on. Like I'm going to jump probably to Motu next, not this second, but in a minute or two. But feel free to keep talking Transformers. I can always jump back. Like I said, I'm largely soloing this stream. I did send an invite out to Mega J Retro because he invited me onto his stream last night, but I know he doesn't usually like to stream early. He's the nighttime streamer, or maybe if there's breaking news, he might stream at this time if it's kind of an in the moment type of thing. And he was just on recently anyway in the last couple of weeks, so hopefully he's not sick of me yet. He'll probably watch this later, so Mega J, let me know if you're sick of me yet. I know the answer is no, but give me some confirmation bias. So look, Transformers has kind of been that one staple that you can always rely on, right? I mean, after getting the Optimus Prime, the official release Optimus Prime, in Earthrise and Kingdom, I'm not sure where they can go next as far as the main line. Yes, I know they have specialty figures like the Lego one or the self-transforming one, but for the main line, like if they wanted to re-release Legacy Optimus or Megatron, would we be just getting the War for Cybertron ones all over again in new packaging or maybe slightly new deco? I would think that might be what they do, and as new fans come into the market, they might just go that route. Yeah. Nolan, I hope that's not true. That's kind of funny. Power of the Prime's Leader Class Prime. That's actually a good one. It's as big as a Commander class these days because the pricing has gone up and the size of the class has gotten smaller. And you know, toy companies will probably pinpoint that to rising costs. But as I said yesterday, like the cost went up, but is like the cost of production went up, but did the markup on that also go up more than, you know, disproportionately? I just posing the question. I don't have the full answer for that out there. That's a good idea, Kieran. Using plastic folding display cases, they protect them from dust and sunlight. It's actually a good idea. Yeah, 2022, Jeff Moore spent way too much on toys and doesn't regret anything. Tying back to our conversation last week about toy regrets, right? Yeah. Okay, so they haven't released Megatron and Optimus officially in Studio 86. But as you know, with Studio 86, a lot of what they released there fits well with the Legacy and the War for Cybertron trilogy stuff. So if they do release them in Studio 86, I imagine they do something like battle damage versions because of their fight to the death in the 86 movie. But who really knows? And I imagine they'll just reuse the same tooling because those are good molds. Maybe they'll, like I said, deco it up differently or give us a little more in the way of accessories. Let's move on a little bit here from Transformers. And Payne's Toy Samples, I know I haven't said hello to you yet. I saw you pop into the chat, but he says, yeah, zero room for anything else other than core class. And I think that's partly what the core class is made for. So it totally makes sense. Let's jump. If I jump back, I think it's a picture of Ralph, but I think those of you who are the members can get this emoji in the chat in the chat if you join the membership. But if you jump forward, if you jump the other way, here's Masters of the Universe Origins. By the way, that wasn't a cheap plug of the membership. It's just that I sometimes see that emoji, and this is where it started. I had to put it on this computer to get that uploaded onto my channel for those of you like Gazz to use the or Ozstradaus or Jim Largo to use the emoji, or TJC for that matter. Just before we jump into Mo 2, I know this turns up on StreamYard. It does not turn up on my end here. And those of you like Nolan, also a member, using the Ralph emoji. Want to jump in here and say Ozstradaus Toyz, thank you for the super chat. Says he may not be Jay, but he's sent me a kind $2 there. Always much appreciated, Ozstradaus, and we'll get you on TKO for a nice conversation at some point in time. Here, I know you were thinking about joining us last night, but wasn't able to make it onto Mega J's channel, but that's okay. We've streamed together there before, and it was a pleasure. And I've been meaning to go back and watch your friend Duchess, her scary stories, because she's got a good narration style, but I'm not sure if those stories will haunt me in my sleep. They probably will, but they might still be worth it. So who knows? Yeah, everybody's giving love to the Ralph emoji there in the chat. I know you can see it on your end, and StreamYard just hasn't interfaced that well yet. Okay, so look, Masters of the Universe Origins. I never really truly got into this line. I'm mostly a Masters of the Universe Classics and 6.5/7" scale type of collector with Motu. But when they released this Wondar figure, because I first heard about this in the Toy Hunter Season 2 episode where they talked about the Wonder Bread He-Man, and Jordan goes and uncovers the He-Man. I've always been fascinated by the Wondar or Wonder Bread He-Man character. So when I saw it offered to me, actually one of the patrons, Troy, offered this to me earlier this year. And initially I wasn't going to get it, and then I did. And I think because of what it represents in toy history, because you know me, I'm as much as I'm a fan of the plastic, the characters, the figures, the colors, the variety on your shelves, I'm just as much a fan of the lore of the franchises and the history of toys. And I caved on this because I already had a WWE / Motu crossover Sergeant Slaughter figure. As you know, like I used to host Welcome to the Slaughterhouse and might continue hosting that one when Zazel brings it back on Sergeant Slaughter Slaughterhouse. I thought that because these figures scale well with them, I quite enjoyed them. And also like with regards to bringing him into the main line as opposed to being like this ultra rare chase figure, I thought that was great. And the same could be said for the original Sunman, because that was not licensed through Mattel back in the day, but was done in the He-Man style body and made for, minorities to be able to relate, speaking specifically to the African American culture, to be able to relate to sort of like a muscular character. And when I saw these two characters released, I got them. I already had the Wonder Bread He-Man character from Masters of the Universe Classics, but I got the Revelation Masterverse version of Sunman, and I got them in this scale as well. And thankfully, like those of you who tuned in 2 weeks back know that Adam Hodgins sent me from Go Figure YouTube channel, sent me a Kendar figure. I like that. Kendar, Wundar, Extendar. So that figure scales with these as well. These are my highlights specifically. A lot of people will remember the initial Wundar fiasco when people weren't able to order them in. And they had some things get canceled. And then, of course, everyone went gaga over Kamo Khan a couple of weeks ago. Space Sumo is out there, who's really esoteric. And as of last night, he was still available for purchase. So for me, these are the highlights for Masters of the Universe Origins because of what I bought. A lot of people, look, you got the Sorceress, you got Castle Grayskull on clearance. There's a lot to like with Masters of the Universe Origins. But as you know, I've got my toe in the water on many toy lines right now. I haven't been able to dip too deep into this, and I've been, going back and buying like Japanese only released Transformers from the 80s that my friends have been selling. So it's hard to sort of like diversify myself too much. Now let's catch up a little bit in the chat. Oh, okay. So there is a company that can be used for display cases, and they ship worldwide. Thank you. Oh, that's interesting. You went with Clampchamp's head on your Sunman. That's cool. Yeah, I got into Motu Classics relatively deep, but I started in like 2017, and I was getting the Matty stuff when Motu Classics was already into Super 7, and then the only Super 7 I got was Shadow Weaver. Just because her price went up really high, and I opened my figures, and most of the samples I found for Shadow Weaver from the first release of Motu Classics was sealed examples. Obi-Wan, he loved that Toy Hunter episode, Merry Christmas Eve. And yes, we talked on Mega J's last night as well. I saw you in the chat there. Wonder which Wundar you're talking about there, Black Phoenix. And yes, Gazz, can't bring out Wundar without Kendar. Let's see him. He's actually upstairs, Gazz. Otherwise, I'd go get him. Though I do need a bathroom break relatively soon. That's the downside of not having guests right now. When I have to go on a bathroom break, it's just going to be awkward silence, unless my son comes and trolls the camera because he's out there watching TV right now. But I will need to take a bathroom break in around the 30-minute mark here. Kieran Ball says he started collecting Motu Origins at the start of 2022 and gave up collecting them at the end of 2022. I'm sure we've had that. And spoiler alert for one of the videos that I have coming up. It's a collector tips kind of video where I basically said follow these 3 rules. I've never done that kind of video before. I wanted to do them when the channel started, but I didn't think I had sort of the amount of time spent on YouTube to be able to be like, hi, I'm Ken and I know what I'm talking about. So I didn't release that last year when the channel started, even though I wanted to. One of the tips that I gave in that, and I mentioned this on Mega J's channel last night, even though this video probably won't release till January sometime, is when you start collecting a line, don't just grab the first thing at the store unless it's something you know you need. Give yourself a bit of an escape route, right? If you want to start collecting Motu, get the main characters. Get He-Man and Skeletor. And I'm not talking specifically to you, Kieran. I'm talking to everybody out there. So if you decide to stop after that, you're at a good stopping point. You can pick up again later and get other characters. Now, I mean, I know I've listed the main characters, but maybe your mileage varies in that, you had specifically another toy as a kid you really liked. Maybe you had a Snout Spout and that was your favorite toy as a kid. So maybe you buy Snout Spout. I don't even know if they released Snout Spout in Origins yet, but maybe you get Snout Spout and you stop there. But if you start getting characters you're not too attached to, and there's still a queue of characters that are ahead of that you must have, and you can't find your stopping point, it makes the line really deep for people. If you know what I'm trying to say, because like, when I got it, like I'm slowly trying to collect Visionaries, right? Getting the main characters rather than getting like if you suddenly just jump in and you get the Dagger Assault, and you haven't gotten most of the main characters, like if you don't have Darkstorm yet, like getting the 2 leaders sometimes is like Leoric. I got him first. Right now, the only Visionaries character I have is Leoric. I've got a Darkstorm that I thought was on the way, but I need to follow up with the seller. We only talk every few months, so I don't even know when I'm going to hear from him again. But if I had to stop with Leoric and Darkstorm, would it be so bad? Not necessarily, right? Because we get distracted. All of a sudden something comes up that you wanted more and you end up buying that instead. So give yourself an escape route is what I'm always saying, right? If you get into Transformers, Optimus, Megatron, Soundwave, Bumblebee, Starscream, Grimlock. I know Gazz is in the chat, so I got to mention that name, but he is an A-list character. So if you got to stop at that point, it's okay. You're not buying esoteric characters and being like, oh, I don't even have the leader and I don't have the guys I'm attached to. So, yeah. Yeah, shipping does suck, but you're also overseas, so you'd have the same problem that I would have. Oh, yeah, I could do a Kendar emoji. That's a great idea for those of you members. TJC, remind me later or message me on Instagram and let me know. A Kendar emoji could work. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think Gaz agrees with you. Right. So you know, Quip, you dipped your toe into the Origins line. He likes admiring it from afar, saw no end in sight. So there you go. So you're kind of heeding the collector advice that I mentioned there. So yeah, let's get that emoji going. Yeah, I've been hoping to get like some of the old Action Man and GI Joe like 60 stuff. Like I really want the Green Beret. Kieran, maybe you know this or maybe not, but somebody wanted like 400 Canadian, which I guess is 300 US. I'm not sure what that is in pounds. For a complete Green Beret, 64 Green Beret, 66 Green Beret. I think he was willing to give me the bazooka, and the clothing was good. And I didn't know if it was a good price, but I didn't jump in on it. Yeah, Quip says, number one rule getting back into collecting: have boundaries, never start a line without an exit strategy. Bam, there you go. Lucha Johnny, I know you're big on wrestling, and yeah, Mo2 as well. And you got the Masters of the WWE Universe, and now WWE. Oh yeah, your Undertaker just arrived. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'd love to get some more of these properties, right. And yeah, all right. So I said I was going to take a bathroom break at the 30-minute mark. So talk amongst yourselves. I will be back within a minute or so. Like I said, this is where I sometimes regret not having a co-host come to talk with me. But let me take a quick leak, because I always say I have no bladder. And actually, you know what? Let's wrap up on Mo2 and jump to the next item here. Maybe get us started on the Star Wars Black Series. Even if you hated Book of Boba Fett, get us started, and I'll be with you again shortly. I'll be right with you soon. All right. Hopefully, not everybody left and headed for the door and said, "Up, Ken's gonna be a while." I'm never too long on these exit breaks. Now, look, let's catch up a little bit here first. Yeah, Gazz, Grimlock is king. Yes, Nolan. It's been a great year for toys, Jim Largo, and a great year to hang out with fellow toy collectors. Yeah, and I know you moved kind of overseas there, and you've been a staple in the chat. And just, you know, I know a lot of other content creators agree with this. Your presence is always welcome in the chat here. Yeah, Quip, Black Series stuff. Doesn't have Black Series, but the recent Hasbro and GameStop sales almost got him to bite into Rogue One. Rogue One to me is a great movie. I wasn't super attached to the characters, but then I watched Andor and just finished last week, so maybe that'll change. And they are the figures are starting to get pricey. There we go. Fennec Shand. I was going to mention this when I get into talking about Book of Boba Fett briefly. I mean, this is when I talk Black Series. The reason this is up is because exactly like you said, Fennec Shand. Even if you didn't like Book of Boba Fett, right? Which my mileage varied depending on the episode and depending on the scene. It was like, I didn't care for this. I thought certain things were lame, loved certain aspects. Anytime Fennec Shand did something, it was awesome. So it was like, I had this like, Book of Boba was a roller coaster for me. But I just got the Throne Room Boba last week from eCollectibles. So that's why this was fresh on my mind when I took this photo. And Lucha Johnny adds that he doesn't collect any Star Wars, but he did, and last year did start Black Series and only picking up Mandalorian stuff, which is a good way to limit it. I like my Jedi personally. I just love lightsabers, and I love the Sith lore, which is why I have a Darth Revan figure, and I will be getting Darth Malak when I can, and I will be getting Bastila when I can get her. Because I love that Knights of the Old Republic series. Now, you'll notice that Star Wars is not a dominant topic on this channel. I wish I could change that, but when I present topics, and they're mostly, the heavy topics are Transformers and G.I. Joe. Wrestling is kind of in there. Like, I have enough expertise on wrestling, but I'm also realizing that if I talk too much modern wrestling, as much as I like talking about it, it's a little bit of a different niche. If I talk 80s wrestling or sometimes Attitude Era, there's some crossover with the Transformers and G.I. Joe fans, and that's totally cool. And when I do my history videos and deep dives, they're usually on those topics. I'm working on a history of Transformers 1985 video right now with Wes Arscott from the Fandom Power podcast. And what I do want to let channel viewers and followers know is that in the background of all this, while I'm putting out these sort of like history pieces or deep dives or thought pieces on the topics that I'm very familiar with, I'm still trying to educate myself on things like Star Wars. And I know that I can speak relatively like decently to the topic, but there's a lot of deep information that I don't know, right? Like, I think even just something as a simple jest, like when Kieran was like, oh, I can tell the year you were born, Ken, because you call episode 4 as A New Hope rather than just Star Wars original, and just little tidbits like that I'm still educating myself on. But it would be nice to be able to put out a Star Wars deep dive or a history type of video in the future to kind of complement the Transformers, G.I. Joe, and wrestling content that's already here on the channel. So I am continuing to educate myself in the background while putting the stuff I'm familiar with at the forefront. So, hopefully in like 10 years time, I've got an eclectic selection of all the toy lines that we all kind of, that are all kind of existing in this common space. Right. And I know Gazz would probably love it if I ever did a deep dive on Megaforce once I finally watched the movie in its entirety. A nice minty but unboxed green beret with all the accessories can go for around 500 Canadian dollars, but they are incredibly rare. Okay, so there we go. That's what I needed to know. So that the price of 400, and I know depending on the release of the green beret, you get different accessories. So maybe that person wasn't out to lunch at 400 with all the complete original accessories, but I don't know if he had all the extra add-ons. So good to know, Kieran. And I know that G.I. Joe era, like, I was more Real American Hero, less on Adventure Team or Movable Fighting Man era of G.I. Joe, but I love the evolution of toys, and the Green Beret to me leads into the Green Beret that I got familiar with G.I. Joe in terms of Falcon, or the main character that they're releasing as part of Call Sign Longbow there. I've had to do some thinking because the independent toy line that's being developed in 2024, end of 23, I'm not sure. Anyway, I just realized I'm falling behind a little bit in the chat. So yeah, I understand, Eddie. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff out there already, but there's also a lot of Transformer stuff, and people typically say that they want the unique take of that particular content creator. So there are people out there who will still want my take on certain things, certain franchises. But I know what you're saying, because like there have been times I've tackled the same topic that's been hit 20,000 times over. I think WWE Fan for Life has a question for others in the chat. I'll let the rest of you answer this. But does anyone use mini enclosed display cases? A 12 by 12 by 12, where is a good place to get them? I don't know. Like, we have Michaels up here in Canada, so sometimes the baseball bat display cases work well. That works better for 3 3/4 inch though than 6 inch. So yeah. And I see some love for the Dinobots in the chat there. Okay, so I've got these particular items up on screen for the reasons I said earlier. Fennec Shand being a badass, and Throne Room Boba being a recent grab for me. And because it shows the evolution of what Boba Fett became, regardless of whether you like that Boba Fett incarnation, or if you prefer him in his less screen time, less is more, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi appearances. While these are on screen, we can talk all things Star Wars, really. I know that the next season of The Bad Batch is coming out relatively soon. And I know that Mandalorian Season 3 is coming relatively soon. So there's quite a lot to like there. Now, the Star Wars Black Series, I notice sometimes they skimp out on things like hip articulation, the thigh cut at the top of the thigh. They sometimes skimp out on those, which I'm like, come on, give us a little extra, right? I'm not sure why they do that. The figures still look okay. I would never call them the best figures in the market, but they're good enough for what we need to represent. I mean, I got these in 2022. I also finished my Bad Batch stuff. I got all 5 and Omega in 2020. In 2022, Bad Batch, I realized it was one of those things that I didn't continue to like. Maybe this will change in the next season, but when I watched Bad Batch, my mind sort of just turned the corner and went to the next thing. There was no like aftertaste or after effect in my mind after. I sort of just watched it and I moved on. Same thing happened with the Batman film that oh gosh, what was the director's name? I had it on the tip of my tongue, but the one Robert Pattinson starred in. I watched it, loved it in real time, and then my mind turned a corner and just went back to the other franchises. Like, that's happened a few times for me now in 2022. That lingering effect seems to be gone for certain things. Now, hopefully that changes when Bad Batch Season 2 comes out, or hopefully when the Batman sequel inevitably comes out. But that's just kind of how I felt. Like, whereas something like Book of Boba Fett, there was a bit of a hangover effect in terms of like, oh yeah, Fennec Shand was great. When I watched Andor, while I wasn't necessarily jumping to collect the figures, there was still an after effect of like, wow, they really added a lot of depth to a character from Rogue One. So there was a little bit. Matt Reeves, thank you, Paints Toy Samples. I appreciate that. Yes, Matt Reeves was the director. And Ozstradaus mentions here that he appreciates Star Wars and used to collect Mandalorian and Jedi and Sith, but now they're just too expensive and feel like all he's seeing is the same few characters. Yes, and you'll see that across Transformers too. Like, how many Optimus Primes do you need? You'll see that a bit in Marvel as well. Like when the MCU, I mean, the MCU is still big, but when they were deep into Phase 2, Phase 3, you saw the same core Avengers over and over again. Yeah, and I'm curious how good Tales of the Jedi has been. Some people have recommended it. Some people say it's just okay. I know Andor got people thinking quite a bit. Now, when it comes to Star Wars, I want to continue collecting the original Kenner line of stuff, but man, I've already got so many big items coming that I'm not sure if I could get into the playsets and all that. I guess if I ever did a history video, I could bug, maybe Kieran could send some photos, or maybe I could bug Scuba Pete to send some photos over if I ever did a proper Kenner history video on them. But like I said, I'm nowhere near mentally ready for that yet. And with regards to Black Series, I'm glad that they're going to jump into the, like I said earlier, the Knights of the Old Republic era, because that's something that I want them to. I mean, we all want them. Those of who were into Knights of the Old Republic want to see that make its way into the Disney Star Wars canon. And Disney is polarizing. They're giving us content that's a little hit or miss. I know that as much as Obi-Wan Kenobi is my favorite character in all of Star Wars, I didn't go jumping at buying the Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff. Zazel, myself, and Brendan Haley had a stream a few months ago where we talked about glass half full, glass half empty with Obi-Wan. Though I find it a bit amusing when I went back and watched part of it, because I was like, Brendan Haley was clearly glass empty, not half empty. And for me, on my glass half full, I literally stopped at half full. I was like, you know what, Brendan? You win the rest of this this discussion, because I can only defend Obi-Wan to a certain point, because I agree that 6 episodes did feel a little bit long for Obi-Wan. Like, there was a lot of extra in there. That, as much as I like the young Leia's acting, as much as I like seeing Ewan McGregor again, as much as I like having something to fill the gap between Revenge of the Sith and Episode 4 / New Hope, I didn't think it needed to be 6 episodes. But can you greenlight a series that's, say, 3 episodes? I don't know, right? Because had it been like 3-4 episodes, I think it would have been perfect. Well, perfect length. You can still debate whether we needed that or not, and whether or not it watered down the usefulness of or the impact of having Obi-Wan and Darth Vader meet on the Death Star for the 77 film. Like, did the Obi-Wan series sort of like make it less meaningful? And because I didn't get into Star Wars till later in life, like I was 1 year old at the time of the release of Return of the Jedi. And because I didn't grow up with Star Wars to the same level, I got into the special edition stuff when I was 15, played some of the video games like Shadows of the Empire in the late 90s, got into the Knights of the Old Republic series, and watched the prequel trilogy from 99 to 05 in that era. It didn't hit me quite as close to home when people were saying that they didn't like seeing Obi-Wan and Darth Vader have to face off in the Obi-Wan series, because it kind of waters down the climactic feel of their meetup in the 77 original film. I get that. If someone was to do something in the middle to water down the fight to the death between Optimus and Megatron in the 86 Transformers film, would I feel the same way? I might feel the same way as those Star Wars fans. Now, that's a little different because they were perpetual enemies throughout the first 2 seasons of Transformers, and neither one went through some massive change like what happened with Darth Vader kind of falling from Anakin to Darth Vader between episodes 3 and 4. So, I'm trying to make an analogy here that works in my head, but that's why I don't feel as strongly as those who grew up with Star Wars as a franchise like that. And about the polarizing nature of the Obi-Wan series in general. So let's catch up with the chat a little bit here. Okay, so James Gunn might take over the Batman franchise a little bit. Yeah, so Jeff Morris didn't have much of a Star Wars collection as a kid, but he had pretty much the same as an adult. One can never have too many Optimus Primes. True. And shout out to Johnny Sorensen, because I'm releasing a Last Stand of the Wreckers Transformers video. That'll be early in the new year. That might be second week of January, give or take. It might be first week of January, depending on my mood. But he sent some photography in for that from his Transformers blog, which you can feel free to put the link to your blog in the description, in the comments below if you want, Johnny. So I did a deep dive on Transformers Wreckers there. Which is going to be a 36-minute long video where I deep dive into one of the comic stories that I feel should shine a big light on Transformers. And while we're talking about Star Wars, I consider Transformers Last Stand of the Wreckers as their equivalent of Rogue One. Sacrifices being made. So shout out to Johnny for some of the help he gave on that video. Like I said, your mileage varies. 2 minutes of Obi-Wan was too long. I think Kieran would have loved to see just a quick cameo. Hi, I'm on Tatooine right now. A quick theme song. See you next time, right? So there you go. Yeah, the retro collection Vader. I mean, a lot of Darth Vader figures are similar anyway, but fair enough. Ian Sweeney. Yeah, Shadows of the Empire and Rogue Squadron for the win, quip. Yeah, so you didn't see Star Wars until a little bit later in life as well, Lucha Johnny. I didn't fully get into it and embrace it right away either. It took me a little bit of time, but once I got into it, did I ever love it? Oh, hey, Christopher Giddens, good to see you. And Pericles, you've joined as well. Wreck and Rule, Johnny Sorensen. That's the Wreckers, Transformers Wreckers version of Yojo and whatever battle cry you happen to have. Roll out. Hello there. Cut the credits. There you go. For those who didn't like Obi-Wan, he says hello there, and then whatever, 2 minutes worth of credits after that. So yeah. Anyway, if you have any more Star Wars memories from 2022, I know I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention some of the Stan Solo stuff that's been released there. Like a lot of people got into the recent Land Speeder 9000 and the Bantha figure, creature that was released this year in the box. So there's that. There's been a lot of third-party fan-made Star Wars on the market lately, but yeah, those of you who collect the Stan Solo stuff, like I have a few of them, definitely great stuff to get. And also Pro Customs figures. I'm looking at some of my Pro Customs Rebel Troopers over there and pilots. So Pro Customs should get some love as well. Oh, there we go. Wow. So Kieran got to see it in 77. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Yes, Travis. I'm not watching football at the moment. I was watching hockey last night, though. So there you go. Yeah, the Andor series. Oh, and Toy Kind of Mood. I guess Travis has jumped over to say hello over there, unless that's either Bobby or KJ on there, but I think it's Bobby. Yes, that custom Boba Fett we got a few months ago for Iconicon was absolutely great. I can see it on the other wall over there. So yeah, I'm just gonna move on from this part of the discussion onwards, and let's talk a little bit of a G.I. Joe Classified as we hit my forte a little bit there. These are figures that obviously came a little bit later in the year with Serpentor and Mindbender. My Sergeant Slaughter is still sitting in a pile of loot, not with BBTS, but with E-Collectibles. That should come relatively soon. I've got other stuff shipping from him relatively soon. Yeah, see, we got some people saying figure of the year. I assume you're talking about Serpentor, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this stream, is a lot of people are saying Serpentor is indeed figure of the year. They did use a taller buck for him to make him look like he's 6'4", 6'5", rather than the 6 foot, 6'1" range of character of a figure, which I'm okay with for Serpentor because he's supposed to be a DNA mashup. I know he wasn't necessarily that tall in Sunbow, but if you're gonna change somebody's scale, change Serpentor's, because I would believe that, because he's a DNA clone. Yeah. Oh wow, I don't know if that's considered a hot take, Kieran. I'll let people in the chat weigh in on that. Paynes at least puts Serpentor in the top 3, not necessarily number 1. And yeah, not everyone was a big fan of Serpentor, but it's a nice figure. I like Serpentor in doses. I'm glad they brought him in when they brought him in as sort of like a challenger and a completely different opposer of G.I. Joe, and an opposer to the Cobra Throne for Cobra Commander. So yeah, look, I've said a lot about G.I. Joe Classified this year. I know that the 6-inch classified scale will ultimately lack the world building ability of the original 3 3/4 inch line, which is why you see some of the anniversary, 30th anniversary figures back there behind and the bottom of the mobile command center. I stick most of my world building to that scale, 3 3/4. I mean, I can only imagine what it's going to be like as more vehicles roll in. I mean, look how big the air chariot is already, let alone when his tank comes in, let alone if they tackle something larger, if they ever do, for something like the Whale or the Tomahawk, or the Mobat or something. And look, there's a lot to like about Classified. People are saying they're hard to find in stores, which they are. Depending on where you go, what part of the world you're in, I imagine you'll find something, but then there'll be the same peg warmers that you already got or already passed on enough times. Look, if there's one line that's been surprising us, it is, in my mind, G.I. Joe and Classified, because with the other toy lines, if you look at big 3 of the 80s, Transformers, you kind of expect it. Like John from Geek Dad Life said, it's like Old Glory. You just expect it. It's going to be there. Old Glory, Old Faithful. It's just going to be there, right? Mo2 has had an on and off presence on shelves in multiple scales because Matty Collector and then Super 7 by extension later on gave us that scale of that larger scale of figures. Mo2 has had a more consistent presence, even though it's on and off. And the 2000 X line in the early 2000s gave us a lot of Mo2 love as well, even though I don't really care for those figures. And with Origins coming up and occurring at the same time as Masterverse and as people are catching up with Mo2 classics and as the Mondo stuff gets released, Mo2's on and off presence has been more on than off than not. And then with GI Joe Classified and I mean, I know there was the 4-inch scale 25th/50th anniversary line of GI Joe, and that got some love as well. I did feel it was because it's such a similar scale to the 3 3/4 inch. I never got too deep into it personally. But GI Joe's been that line where we didn't know if it was going to make it past the initial year. And as we roll into 2023, we know it's going to keep going strong, and I'm grateful to have it. Now, do I have enough shelf space to keep buying stuff? I don't, which is partly why I'm not buying the sub teams, but people are telling me that I'm missing out on some really great figures, particularly with Tiger Force Outback. Gosh, I'm missing a lot of stuff in the chat here. I know that I'm not getting to every single comment here, and I no longer can. But that's okay. That's the nature of a busier chat. Yeah, Ozstradaus. Top Contender pays homage to the original details. I assume you're talking about Serpentor, and yes, you are. Yeah, see, depending where you are, we don't have Target up here in Canada, right? I see stuff at Toys R Us and Walmart here, but it could be a shelf full of Spirit figures, or which happened at my recent Walmart look through, or at Toys R Us. I was able to find a bunch of Cobra Island roadblocks, and and Baronesses all showed up here, right? Yeah, I assume I'm supposed to read this in Serpentor's voice. Yeah, I mean, you'd be Jim Largo. Dreadnought Ryan would say the same thing. He wants to see more Dreadnoughts, some cold slither stuff. Oh, Grumpy Fish. Yeah, been MOC Mo2 for a while. Yeah, we just chatted on Discord yesterday. Grumpy Fish started opening doubles lately. Yeah, I mean, obviously they're going to look bigger in box than they are when you get them opened up. Totally cool. I mean, I encourage people to open their classified figures, but mind you, they do look nice displayed in number format on the shelf there, especially if you're collecting chronologically. And yes, I do have a hard time beating 3 3/4 inch figures because of the amazing articulation. And we have a lot of independent toy lines coming out in 23/24. Like I mentioned, Call Sign Longbow earlier. Skeletron's going to have at least that one O-ring figure with a changeable head kit. Strike Force Alpha, some of their stuff is going to be landing. I shouted out everybody in a video I did in the past summer there, Operation Recall. Delta 17 that I'm working on with, like I mentioned, with Steve last night, and Tommy, our sculptor, jumped in on that live chat. So yeah, there's a lot there. Aaron Hardy. Yeah, I didn't get enough of the figures, but yes, I heard some people complain about the legs for the 20th/50 figures. I'm not sure that's a question. I'm not sure if that's a question for me, Ian Sweeney. That Bobby has the name for the Action Force license, building his own brand. But what are the thoughts on someone doing OG Action Force classified, such as Baron Ironblood and Mouton? I think they could very easily do it, couldn't they? Like, I'm not sure about the Red Shadows. Well, I mean, we're gonna see some level of Red Shadows from Skeletron anyway, because they've got the wolf character coming in, and that's supposed to represent the wolf that piloted the red wolf that piloted the Roboskull in the original line. So we're gonna get that anyway. I've ordered that as part of my Roboskull Special Edition Mark II. We're definitely gonna get that. I don't see why Classified couldn't make those figures though, because they've got they've got Scarlet, who could turn into Coral for the Z Force. They've got Gung Ho, who could become Gaucho. They've got Jammer, who could become Stalker, or from who they can make from Stalker very easily in Action Force. And even someone like the Cobra Infantry could be made into the Red Shadows Troopers. Cobra Commander became Red Laser. I assume they could use the Flint Buck to make Baron Iron, Black Major very easily. Mouton would be a little bit different. You got to get a very unique head for that, but I don't see why they couldn't, right? Wow, there's a lot in the chat here. Oh, yes, and we'll definitely talk Delta 17 a bit more as the time comes. Now, as part of an extension to Classified, I did get pretty deep, and Travis, if you're still there, give us a shout out for this is my picture of Gridiron Studios upgrade kits on some of these figures. In some cases, I used G.I. Joe figures. In some cases, I used extra Valiverse figures that I had either lying around or from other people who sold theirs. Oh, yes, Kieran, you're right. Someone else does have the rights to Red Shadows at the moment. So I'm not even sure if Hasbro could do their likeness and call them something else. That's a good point. I completely forgot about that. So, look, I'm not sure if these characters will get released. I mean, Duke obviously been released and Classified. But some of these characters, whether they get released or not, and I know that's supposed to be a generic Desert Trooper, but for now, I like it better than Dusty. I'll know when my Dusty eventually comes in. Yeah, I mean, this is just me showing what the fan-made movement can do to improve your figures. Like, up top there, that Televiper was made from a Cobra Infantry mold with a head swap. The Short Fuse figure there was made with a Flint head on a breaker body. The Steeler figure, which I released a video of recently, was made from a Valiverse Action Force Delta Trooper with a Condor head, and the rest of the Condor body went to make Captain Gridiron next to him. Footloose below there was made from a Flint Buck and was a gift from Dreadnought Ryan. The Hit and Run figure there, my friend Peter did some paint work, and I did a head swap because I used the Flint head somewhere else. I used the Snake Eyes movie head there and got the Hit and Run kit, which is a video I have not released yet. I've made it, but I haven't released it yet. The Duke I've made a video on. The Tripwire video. This is funny with a Tripwire video. I made it and I released it by accident, and I think it got about 10 views. I think Kieran and Treasures for Trigger saw the video, and then I had to take it down and release the proper video that week, just because I have an order that I want to release them. But that video is coming up soon, ish. And then, as we know, this desert figure was made by Ryan Sweeney. The main figure was customized by him off of a Flint body, and I added the desert kit from Gridiron Studios. So yeah, and yes, and Toy Kind of Mood, I think you and Anthony Romo interviewed Gridiron Studios recently, so check that video out. And yes, they make some great weapons packs. I get a lot of negativity in the comments for the price of the Gridiron stuff, and I understand that, you know, like sometimes the stuff doesn't hold up as well because it's 3D printed. Like I've had stuff I've had to re-glue back together. It's just that I know what I'm getting into when I choose to support Gridiron, and they are a new company who's evolving. So I just say give them a chance. And when we interviewed Mark on this channel, Travis was there for that. Ryan Sweeney was there for that. He was a great guy, right? So maybe I can meet him at Joe Fest when I get there next year. That's a good point. I'd love to see some October Guard. Not sure what you mean by third best accessory kits you've seen, or best third party accessory. I was thinking third best third party accessory kits. I could agree with that. I'm trying to think if Transformers has done better. Because DNA, the company DNA Customs has done some upgrade kits before. But Transformers is more just straight up third party making of figures altogether rather than just upgrade kits. So anyway, look, that's what I had as far as pictures to share were concerned. And for those of you who are supporting these characters, and that's a good point, current political climate, they might avoid October Guard. I wonder if they could just release the figures without calling them October Guard, because like a figure like Big Bear, when they released him in the early 90s, wasn't necessarily like, yes, he was part of the October Guard, but when he appeared in the Deke animated series, I don't know if they called it out on that. So something to think about, right? Maybe they could selectively release it, or maybe they could wait a few years, see how long the classified line lasts. And yes, TF Hustler, good to see you here. TF Hustler's enjoying the Gridiron stuff just as much as I am. So look, if there's something in 2022 that I haven't covered yet, like Marvel Legends, there we go. Like I got a little bit of X-Men stuff from Marvel Legends. I know that a lot of people got their Haslab Galactus this year, and the Engine of Vengeance obviously failed, even though that was never going to come this year, even if it's funded. And I saw mostly good things about Galactus, more so than I did about the Sentinel and its weak knees. But I'm glad that all the stretch goals were unlocked for Galactus, and when people got them, it was mostly good reviews. For Marvel Legends, I've mostly stuck to the X-Men because I like that 92 animated series, and I got most of my Avengers fix when I was collecting Hot Toys before the price hike. So back like 2014 era was like my main Hot Toys era, so that's where I got a lot of my Marvel representation. But if I missed something big in Marvel Legends that somebody wants to talk about, be sure to put it in the chat, because I mostly, and I've said this before, I mostly collected Marvel Legends during the Toy Biz era, because there was no G.I. Joe classified at the time. There wasn't, I mean, Star Wars Black Series didn't even exist during the Toy Biz era. And third-party stuff was just getting started in the Transformers game. There wasn't as much third-party ramp-up for other toy lines, so I had more disposable income to get into Marvel Legends back in the 2000s, when Toy Biz was heavily into it. Gridiron Jump Pack. Yeah, I haven't shown that one yet. I think I took some photos of it, but it's kind of buried in the back of my collection right now, just because you can show somebody launching off, so it's easier to put it in the back of a shelf than at the front of a shelf. But we talked about the Jump Pack there, Jim Largo. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the plastic-free packaging either, though I do like the artwork done by Adam Riches as part of the Sergeant Slaughter. Chris Gibbons, I did see it briefly. You may have to expand a little bit, because I just saw a photo while I was scrolling Facebook on this particular DC 5-pack. Oh yeah, I got Beast in the lab coat back in 2020. I didn't get this re-release. I wonder if it's the same figure on a different card, because I'm just not a Marvel Legends expert these days. Never truly was. But I'm falling behind a little bit on Marvel Legends, but good to mention that and give Marvel Legends some love for the purpose of this stream as we talk about 2022. I'm still not sure what I'm going to talk about next week, if I even stream next week. Like, you got to bear in mind, I've been pretty consistent on TKO streams ever since I started them in early June, when I finally got StreamYard. And as we talk, I mean, like the 1 week that I wasn't able to do a TKO, didn't know I was going to do this, but I pre-recorded a 45-minute long video about my life as a collector, as a kid, back in the day, and I released that on a weekend that I was out of town, and I premiered that in place of a TKO, which begs the question of, there will be some weekends I can't do a TKO in 2023. So, I know some people just take a week off, and I would be happy to do that and give my mind a bit of a rest. But would you like to see some premieres where I can't, pull up chats like this, but I could at least record a TKO offline on my own time, and then premiere it on a weekend in premiere format? And they could be anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour and a half long, depending on how much I have to ramble about, and I could just pick a topic that may not necessarily need audience interaction. Could I just do a TKO premiere on the weekends? Would that still mean something to you folks in the chat, and still give you a place to come on the weekends. And I know there's a lot of great podcasts out there. Like I watch Toy Geeks every Sunday, though I think Jay and John are not going to do their Toy Geeks until Tuesday this week or something along those lines. I was talking to Jay the other day because Sunday falls on Christmas Day, or Toy Anxiety. Like, you know, they have a schedule they always keep to. If I have a weekend where I got to be out of town, like I got to be in Victoria for a toy show, or I have to be at Joe Fest for a weekend, I obviously won't be able to do a live TKO. So maybe I can air a premiere, right? Or I could try to do it from the hotel Wi-Fi, but then I have to bring all my gear with me, which I may not want to do. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I probably will air a premiere, but then there's some people who might be like, why aren't you pulling up my chat? Why are you ignoring the chat? And they don't understand that a premiere was aired offline and I'm not able to interact with the chat because it was an offline recording that's being aired in real time. Because we had that happen once on Sergeant Slaughterhouse, where we premiered an offline recording and somebody kept saying, say hi to me, say hi to me. I'm like, it's a premiere. And we were in the chat, which I may not always be able to be in the premiere, saying, we can't respond to you on camera. And they weren't getting it. They put about 6 or 7 messages saying, respond to me. And I'm like, and me and Zazel and Kelly were like, we can't. And we were in the chat typing to him saying, we can't. And I don't know. It just happens sometimes. Let me just catch up with the chat a little bit here. Oh, Connor Fuller, you've made it. Good to see you. And Connor, put up your channel if you want to put the link as well in the chat, so people can find your channel. And I'm, honored that you've been able to chat with me a little bit this year. I know we haven't texted in a little while, but when I do catch your reviews on occasion, I do enjoy them, and it's been awesome getting to know you as a member of this community. The Kraken are, well, which Kraken? I know Grindhead Jim, and Manic. I'm gonna butcher his name. His partner there, in Mexico, Maniac Motu. They've got their Resurrection toys. I think they're doing a Kraken. Most anticipated figures of 2023. I was thinking about that. Do we want to go that topic, or do I want to maybe talk about some of the independent toy lines like Animal Warriors of the Kingdom? I've talked a lot of Valaverse already, so I would only touch on them a little bit. If I did that, and maybe some of the independent O-ring lines, because most anticipated figures of 2023, that list is going to change, right? Like in January, they'll announce stuff that's going to happen later in the year. So if I speculate based on December information, I may not get much mileage out of that stream, just for my own personal reasons. Views be damned, right? Yeah, I agree. The main Marvel Legends toy line is very hit and miss. And the Spider-Man retro line is incredible. Yeah, it actually is. I saw the Kingpin in that line, and it's really, really nice. Oh, okay. This is the comment on the DC stuff, and I love reading DC Batman stuff. I just love reading it. Like I haven't read in a few years, but I was heavy into reading Batman stuff in the 2000s and 2010s era. So like that's when I caught up. I mean, I know Hush and Red Hood and some of those characters came up in the aughts, the 2000s, and then it was the Snyder run in the 2010s that got really big. I caught up on the classic stuff like Long Halloween, Dark Victory, Dark Knight Returns, Year One. My preferred Frank Miller story for Batman is actually Year One, not Dark Knight Returns. Both are great for different reasons, but I want to put that out there. I actually have a top 10 Batman comics that I released early in the life of the channel that hardly got any views, and I kind of wish I'd released it later when the channel had a little bit more traction. Maybe if there's enough interest, I can boost that on the channel tab, on the community tab later on. But yes, I think this is your comment about the multi-pack for DC stuff. Yeah, I thought about taking time off, but if I have something to talk about and I miss a week, will I be like jonesing a little too much for the next week to the point that I don't know. You know how it is. Hey, you're welcome for the ride anytime, Grumpy Fish, and I appreciate your comments and whatnot. I know you had a recent name change on YouTube, which is why I was wondering where did that individual go? Because like when you get regular commenters and all of a sudden they disappear for a while, I'm like, did I say something wrong? And I'm like, nope, you got a new name and new handle, and I know Quip got one as well, so good to hear that. Yeah, and I probably would just say offline version of TKO. Is probably what I would say at the beginning, because I would keep the theme song the same and I would put it on the TKO playlist if I went offline. So I would just mention it as a pre-recorded TKO. Hopefully my screen resolution is good. I mentioned earlier that for whatever reason, my StreamYard view looks really clear. And then for whatever reason, when I watch offline later on, or when I'm trying to check the quality of the stream, my camera is less than focused. So I put the ring light directly facing me right now, to hopefully get a little better focus. But I know those of you don't care too much about that. But for me, it's one of those things that if I'm trying to be more professional, I'd like a professional look on camera. So a good camera helps, especially since I spent money on this Logitech. If I wanted a blurry screen, I would just use my. I mean, if you take a look, you can switch webcam views. This is just my regular camera off of my Chromebook. You can tell me if there's a difference looking at this view rather than my webcam. Let me know how this looks. But like, this is the webcam view. If I switch back, and hopefully it's a lot better. It looks a lot better on my StreamYard. I'm not sure how it looks on your end over there. Yes, Resurrection Toys. I have floated the idea to Grindhead Jim about doing like a back-to-back stream where you get TKO and toy grinds right after, and we call it TKO grinds. Like when we got to find a block of time for that where we can go 3 hours uninterrupted, which can be very difficult for him and very difficult for me. And I've also been talking to Zazel about doing a back-to-back Welcome to the Slaughterhouse and TKO on back-to-back streams. Now, my family's going out of town January 31st to February 11th because they need to visit. My wife needs to visit her sister, and she's bringing her parents along. There's not enough beds in the house, so I get to stay here. My son gets to go hang out with his cousin, so because they're over on that part of the country as well. So could I try to work out something with other YouTubers around that time, or should I film figures that I haven't been able to get to, or toys I haven't been able to get to in a few years, like my Terror Drome? I'd love to do a video on that, but it's such a big thing I can't lug into the house. I got to yank it out of storage. So there's a lot I got to think of in the time that they're out of town. Yes, independent toy lines would be good as a stream. And yes, that's the one I was thinking. I was pretty sure that's what you were talking about, or what someone mentioned with the Kraken in 2023. But check out Grindhead Jim if need be. We could talk best indie retailer of 2022, or best indie retailer coming up in 2023, because there's gonna be a lot of them. Yeah, that Kingpin is a big dude. So I'm gonna do the one Chris Givens on Last Stand of the Wreckers in the coming weeks here, which has to do with basically an Autobot suicide mission where they've sent a group of Autobots, the Wreckers, to recover a piece of information that's vital to the Autobot cause. And I'm getting the chills just talking about it. I showed the video to a couple of top-level patrons just to get... and if anybody has questions about the Patreon, let me know. I don't want to overplug that in a way that makes it sound like I'm being aggressive on trying to get money from viewers. People viewing the channel is plenty, whether you're a patron or a channel member. But I showed it to a couple of the top-level patrons just to get their view on it. One patron said he just loved it, said this is one of your best videos ever, Ken. Oh my god, you deep dove so much. Another person said that there were a few too many esoteric characters that he had a hard time following, which did not reflect in his mind on the quality of the video, but on the fact that, like, if you're not covering the main characters, it can be a bit hard to follow, which I understand that too. And I knew it was going to be that kind of a video. So, and once again, thanks to Johnny Sorensen for loaning some photography from his blog. Let us know, Ozstradaus, if you got toys to talk about in the new year, let us know. Okay, yeah, Batman 89 comics. Yeah, I got into comics closer to the Nightfall run, Grumpy Fish. Mafex stuff looks great. I love the Hush stuff because it's Jim Lee art. Just love it for that reason. Yeah, just let's scroll down a little bit here. Oh, Ryan Sweeney, you're on. Wishing a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody. Yes, good to have you here. And Ryan has been instrumental to getting, to helping this channel as well, giving me feedback and all that. He's a person who has joined both the Patreon supporter and the channel membership. One of the most loving supporters of Toy Connections. So your friendship is greatly appreciated. And I showed some of your figures here earlier that you sent me in the mail, Ryan, if you didn't catch it earlier on in the stream. Yeah. Oh, ICT Vinny says it's clear. Appreciate that. Quips. Oh, I'm so far behind in the chat that I'm still answering questions about the. I'm pulling a Mega J right now, where I'm falling behind in the chat and then answering questions 5 minutes later, or in his case, 15 minutes later. Love you, Mega J. That's not a slight towards you whatsoever. So good, as long as it looks clear. Okay, good. So people love the webcam. Better color saturation. I think what it is I'm trying to get that 720p quality at minimum, because StreamYard only goes up to 720p at the tier that I'm on, that Jody from GenXToysGeek pays for. So thank you, Jody. Shout out to you. And I noticed just on my streams it doesn't look 720, so that's why I've got the ring light facing this way this time to hopefully help the webcam bring some clarity to the screen. And you'll notice, I don't know if people notice this, but most of my pre-produced videos are done in 720 because the device that I use doesn't have a lot of storage capacity, so I don't film in 1080. I hope it hasn't affected the quality of the videos, because most of the expert YouTubers, and I'm not calling myself an expert, most of the ones that are I consider experts, film in 1080. And I don't know whether it affects your experience at all as viewers to see it in 720. I'm okay because I mostly view on smaller devices. I'm either viewing it on a computer monitor or my phone when I view stuff. So if those of you have a massive screen, and I'm only asking, I have to do what I have to do. Like it makes sense for me to film in 720 for my pre-produced stuff. But I'm curious how some of you feel about that. Like, is it affecting your experience at all? Thank you, Chris. And Wilhelm is here. You can check out his channel as well. And he's been a guest a couple times now on TKO. That'd be funny. Quip. Sliding around in sunglasses and socks like a rock star, I guess, right? And everyone's wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. Oh, Impossiblepie stopped in. It's funny because I was at a restaurant last night, and Tim, Impossiblepie, you know this. I took a picture of the menu because there was something called an Impossible Burger. And I sent him a picture and said, are the ingredients in an Impossible Burger the same as an Impossible Pie? And he said, no. Have a great day. Ryan, thanks for stopping in. And yes, we'll talk Wreckers soon enough on this channel. A Wrecker retrospective. That's exactly what Last Stand of the Wreckers is going to be. A Wreckers retrospective of that one suicide mission. I gave Stan Solo some love earlier on. Impossiblepie. Shout out to Chris. I got to chat with Chris briefly this year when the Boba Fett was being released earlier this year, and I got to say hi to him a little bit on All Things 80s Dean's chat. Nice guy, actually. I know some people say and by his own admission, that he's got a temper, but I know that if you don't go at him, he doesn't come at you. So it's how it works, right? I think. Thank you, Will. Appreciate that. On the screen, most people watch YouTube vids on 720 versus 1080 won't see a noticeable difference, and that's true too. And I know and I'm getting really technical here, I know, but like if you go 30 frames per second versus 60 frames per second, I don't know if that makes a bit of a difference. I know, but maybe one of the reasons I'm thinking about this is because Wes from the Fandom Power podcast is a techie. Right. So when we talk about microphones and whatnot, he has a very specific audio setup, and you're going to notice it when we do the collaboration on the history of Transformers 1985. Like, I know my audio I don't use this microphone a lot of times on my pre-produced. I save it for streams. I save it for streams like this, but when I have my lapel mic, I know that the audio is decent on it. But when I hear Wes's microphone, the expensive microphone that he's got, I notice a difference between his audio and mine, and I'm like, he's raising the bar for me, which is great, right? And as I can start getting more expensive equipment as the channel warrants it, I will eventually do things like that. So yeah, I don't think 720 versus 1080 won't be that big of a difference, or audio for that matter. I just wanted something that was a bit better, because when I first started making videos, I literally used the microphone coming out of my cell phone, and that's what I used. And getting the lapel mic and getting this this Malkey microphone that Grindhead Jim recommended for me a number of months ago was like that +1, like just go basic +1 tier up. And then as I try to level up again, as I start to embrace the technology a bit more, I'll get into that. But I'm not a techie, you know what I mean? I'm somebody who probably needs a producer, but you know, don't really want to get into the logistics of a producer. Channel's also not big enough to warrant a producer. Like, I'm not Toy Galaxy, where they have, you know, Dan and Greg, their dynamic there, where one does the research and the scripting, and the other one does the technology side and editing side of things. So Aaron Hardy says ages 3 and up has a Boxing Week sale if anyone's up for it. Yeah, and shout out to Boris, Eric, Jay, and the staff there. They're within driving distance of me, so I absolutely love them. What's the best studio mic for streaming on YouTube? I'm gonna try to find what Wes sent me. But he sent me a microphone called MV7 is the microphone that he has. If you just look up a Shure, SHURE MV7, that's what he's got. That was going for 289 Canadian, so that's about 200 American, 220 American is what it should cost. I mean, I got an $80 Canadian Malkey microphone, just as sort of a the thing with this microphone, though, if you're too far away, you hear all the echo like this. If you're too close like this, you hear the distortion. So I need some. I would in the long term like something a little bit better than this, but this was me kind of experimenting with microphones, because I used to just use the ones directly off my earbuds. So that's what I see when I say, that's what I mean when I say +1 level up to what I normally have. Anyway, there's a lot of techie stuff here that isn't really part of what the channel's about, but it's still that's important. Impossiblepie asks if there's anything I'm looking to pick up, collecting goals, any planned videos. So I talked a little bit about the planned videos earlier, Tim. I have, actually, the one thing I haven't talked about is I did a tour in 2021 of the Toy Traders G.I. Joe section. It ended up being the most viewed video in Toy Connections channel history so far. It's got more than double the number of views of my other channel, of my second and third best videos. I went back and did an extended tour of that. That will come out in the next in the week between Boxing Day and New Year's. That'll be the last produced video from Toy Connections in 2022, and I might do one more live stream after that. Sorry if you hear something in the background, that's just somebody making some food. I will probably put out at least one more Patreon message for those of you like Ryan Sweeney and Wilhelm Toy and Hobby, for those of the patrons. But the Toy Traders extended tour it'll be about a 13-minute video of their G.I. Joe section, because the last video was about 6 minutes long. I wanted one that was a little bit more detailed, so I'll release that in the coming days. The following week will probably be another Gridiron Valaverse mashup of how I made the Tripwire figure, either that or the Hit and Run custom figure, and then after that will be the Last Stand of the Wreckers release, so into 2023. So Will asks if I'm going to Joe Fest. I am. Steve from Delta 17 is going to be taking a crew of us there to represent Delta 17. I will be co-representing Toy Connections while I'm there. So if you're there, Will, give me a hug in person. Sweep me off the floor and spin me around like we're dancing if you're going to be there. Yeah. And yeah, there are some videos there with really bad microphones. Like, look at the first 10 or so Toy Connections videos that I did just off of my camera phone microphone. And the funny thing is, I've even seen audio that's worse than that, and I thought that was pretty bad as it was. Maybe because I at least managed the volume after the fact on those in my recording app. But yes, it does make a little bit of a difference. June 9th to June 11th in Augusta, Georgia, Tim. And that's when Joe Fest is going to be. So we'll hang out there. A lot of the crew that we talk to, like Zazel will be there. Gazz is going to be there. Hans Chow will be at Joe Fest. Matthew Comstock says he'll be there. I know I'm forgetting some names. Kelly will be there hanging out at her dad's booth. Zazel's actually going a week early. So there'll be a lot of you folks at Joe Fest. Chad's there every year. We're trying to get Ryan Sweeney to go, but I think he has plans that weekend. Hopefully Tommy, our designer for Delta 17, can be there as well. But yeah, look, hey, we managed to carry this 90-minute stream with one bathroom break only. And I didn't realize I was gonna be able to get to that time length just on my own without extra guests on the channel. But look, hey, everyone, thank you for your support of Toy Connections this year. Special double thanks to the channel members and Patreon supporters of this channel. I may think of a topic next week, or I might take the week off. I'm not 100% sure yet. Those of you out there, have a Merry Christmas. You will be hearing from me. So I know there's look, a few other questions in the chat. Mattel line of classic He-Man figures. I think you're talking about the ones that are more like the toy than the cartoon. I do. I enjoy them. Thank you, Lucha Johnny. I will talk to you a bit more in the GDL Discord there. I know we talk sometimes on the wrestling Discord, and I'm usually a little bit behind. Like my Discord, because there's so many notifications, is not set to notify me. So sometimes I catch up a little bit later. I know we talk some wrestling on there, and I only talk a little bit in the wrestling forum, but appreciate your insights on there. Keep doing what you're doing. Ozstradaus, yeah, it just happens sometimes where you can just go on to talk to the chat. Appreciate all of you who are here. RoboSkull 23, you know, you'll be getting that. Yeah, 2023 has been a great year. Merry Christmas to you as well. Look, it's you folks here who have made it possible to embrace TKO, because it was just going to be a sporadic thing that happened. When I first tried it, I didn't know what live streaming was going to be like, and then it became a weekly thing for the last 6 months and counting. Hopefully it can be as regular or as good as some of our friends at Toy Geeks and Toy Anxiety, or Mega J. And those of you who do go live, the channels, the support channels and support outlets, and not everything has to be about YouTube, right? Like Johnny Sorensen has a blog for Transformers, and he has a Batman blog. Matthew Comstock has his Joe Restored, G.I. Joe Restoration blog, right? It can be other means of social media that we use to try to connect and get along with one another. And yes, please press that like button to spread this video to more viewers and share it with your friends. Feel like I'm giving an ad like I do at the end of my produced videos. Look, all right, everyone, I'm going to bid you all farewell. I'm going to go for it's 11 a.m. here on the West Coast. I'm going to have a nice lunch with the family. My wife, my son, and my wife's mom are going to go. I think they want to go for dim sum today. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see where that happens to be. But anyway, I'll talk to most of you after Christmas, and you'll see some more Toy Connections videos in the coming weeks, coming months, and coming years. So take care. Have a good one, and I'll see you again soon.